2:43 a.m. The time stamped on the airline itinerary. Not a morning flight, not even a red-eye. This was a ghost flight hour, a disappearance window. While everyone else was asleep, Florian was checking in at JFK, alone, with no return ticket and no one to wave goodbye. No text, no call, not even a half-hearted fight. Just silence. Stacey's phone buzzed at 3:07 a.m., but it wasn't him. It was a bank notification. Something had triggered a security alert on the joint account. Welcome to Sister Wives Daily. I'm Sarah, and I'm about to walk you through one of the coldest exits reality TV has ever seen. You need to hear every detail of this moment, because this wasn't a breakup. This was an escape. And when the signs started piling up, it became something else entirely. Subscribe if you want the full truth. And drop a comment below. Do you think Stacey ever saw this coming? By 7 a.m., the doorman said he saw her rushing out in a hoodie, keys in hand, no makeup, no cameras, just panic. That's not breakup energy, that's something illegal might have happened energy. The apartment door was wide open behind her, like she wasn't even thinking straight when she left. Do you know what she said in the elevator? He's gone. That's it. She didn't even cry. Just whispered it over and over like she couldn't believe it yet. The bedroom? Stripped of him. A charger missing. A hoodie. His cologne. The bathroom sink was dry. Floss still in the holder, but his comb gone. Clean getaway. Too clean for someone who was just mad or having a break. And while her heart was breaking, the Chase Bank app was loading. She couldn't even get in. Temporary lockout. Two-factor authentication. Failed. Someone changed it. The same morning between 2:47 and 3 a.m., when the wheels were leaving the runway. This is the kind of move that doesn't happen overnight, and it's impossible to ignore that this exact week, something weird had already been happening behind the scenes. 2 weeks earlier, she posted a photo with him looking stiff, distant, almost cropped. The caption? Loyalty over everything. That post is gone now, deleted. Nothing clickable, but people screenshotted it, and the comments, if you remember, kept asking one thing. Where is he? We thought it was another 90-day glitch. Maybe they were dodging spoilers. Maybe it was staged. But then, silence stretched into hours, then days. And right after that flight left JFK, something started happening back in Albania. A TikTok. Showing someone who looked eerily like Florian holding a bag in Tirana surfaced within 24 hours. No timestamp, no context, but people who knew his walk, his posture, swore that was him. So, was it a breakup? Or had this been happening in slow motion for weeks while Stacey was still calling it love? She told friends she thought he'd be back in time for the taping. He had skipped a few fittings, missed a call with production, but made it seem like just travel stress, jet lag, photo shoots. There were always excuses. That's the thing with people who don't plan on staying. They get better at sounding like they're still all in. But what doesn't lie? The Uber receipts. We later found out his ride to JFK was scheduled from an alternate email address, a dummy one with a nickname matching one of his old social handles, disabled now. How many layers of this were hidden under her nose? And the worst part? That ticket, the one-way to Europe. It wasn't spontaneous. It had been purchased 16 days before, long before the Instagram shoutouts, long before their last public kiss. Which, looking back, didn't even look real. She had no clue. Stacey's first real clue wasn't his absence. It was the silence from everyone else. Mutual friends stopped calling. His cousin didn't check in. Her stylist even said he felt weird vibes the last time he saw Florian. Cold, disconnected, taking calls outside, limiting eye contact. And remember the suitcase brand he always used? Hard shell, dark gray, scuffed corner? Gone, not in the closet, not by accident. If someone left in a panic, you'd expect chaos. Drawers open, socks under the bed. But there was something eerie about how tidy it all was, as if he cleaned his tracks, thought through how to leave the smallest trace possible. His name was even gone from the building's intercom, properly removed. Not crossed off. Removed. Someone had submitted that access change before he left, so who helped him? Because that's not something you do unless someone is guiding you, and it's absolutely not something you do unless you never planned to come back. She went into the closet. That's where it all fell apart. Right corner, beige shoebox, not secret, but not something he'd ever brought up again. She opened it, and the papers inside spun the story in a whole new direction. The week before Florian vanished was strangely quiet, not just on social media but in real life. Their usual scripted chaos, Stacey's cryptic story posts, backstage chatter from crew members, none of it. Even their joint appearances stopped. Florian had skipped a photo shoot, claimed he had a stomach bug, but the DMs were still being read, just not responded to. Monday, 4 days before the flight, Stacey texted him at 11:17 a.m. Something basic. Lunch later? He didn't reply. Nothing new. But that day she bought groceries like normal, paid his barber through Zelle, even left a funny voice message about the studio AC being broken again. That doesn't sound like a woman even remotely aware she was being left. Wednesday night she went live for 3 minutes talking about a clothing drop. Florian's name didn't come up once. All smiles, tight framing. But no ring. She always showed her ring. In hindsight, that might have been the first crack. And behind the smile, people later pointed out something was flickering in her body language. Restless eyes, forced tone. She wasn't posting him because she didn't want the questions. The paperwork trail started getting suspicious once people dug into public filings. A marriage intent form had been logged, but the actual marriage certificate couldn't be matched to it when fans tried searching. The version they gave production was different from the version in the courthouse logs. Dates didn't align. It's not illegal, not proof of anything shady, but it raised eyebrows. Especially once someone noticed that the license appeared filed 1 week after his visa status allegedly required confirmation. Were they covering timeline gaps? Or were they bending things for the cameras? There's also the green card speculation. Some fans said he already got it. Others think he was rushing to secure it. But here's the part that really set people off. 1 year ago, Stacey told a podcast interviewer that they were working through delays with immigration. But in a deleted tweet, Florian's cousin said he already got his card sorted last year. So which is it? If his status was clear, why keep filming the "will he stay" storyline? And if it wasn't clear, how did he fly out of the US without triggering flags? Someone's lying, either for love or for leverage. Credit card statements don't lie, though. A charge from a notary service popped up 8 days before he flew. It wasn't local, it was based in New Jersey, meaning either someone went there for him, or he was setting up documents he didn't want connected to their current home. For months before that, he had been ordering from the same 3 places: protein supplements, shoes, occasional rideshare. All of a sudden, in that last week, there were purchases that didn't match his usual behavior. 2 courier charges, 1 money order, and, oddly, a basic prepaid SIM card from a convenience store in Queens. Why grab a prepaid number unless you don't want to be traced? Stacey's inner circle didn't suspect anything until it was already over. One assistant said he was getting distant, but thought it was just a fight. Another friend noticed he had changed his lock screen from a wedding photo to a blank background. Something about that coldness, like he was slowly balancing out emotional distance with practical withdrawal, creeps people out now. What makes this worse is how carefully orchestrated the flight timing was. Logically, he could have left during daylight. That would have drawn less suspicion. But he waited, watched her sleep, and snuck out during what some security camera logs later confirmed as 2:03 a.m. leaving the apartment lobby. He didn't rush. That's the disturbing part. He paused by the front desk, wore a cap, low, travel bag. He didn't look nervous. He looked done. When people compared fan footage of him from earlier that week, something stood out. He wore the exact same jacket 3 days in a row, old but familiar. Not one of the flashy brands. Some speculated he did that to stop drawing attention. No logos, no new photos Stacey could post later, like he was becoming less of a character and more of a ghost, even before he left. On Reddit, fans debated whether this was really a surprise or whether Stacey ignored the warning signs. But a lot of the receipts posted, FlightAware data, Twitch logs from his alleged side account, even screenshots from flight seats data, support one thing. This wasn't impulsive, this was mapped out, down to the snacks he bought at Terminal 1. And here's where it twists. During the cab ride to JFK, Florian got a phone call at 1:19 a.m. It lasted 57 seconds. One ring, picked up, short conversation, hung up. Not a hotel, not an airline. A number linked to a local Queens-based apartment complex, the kind used for month-to-month rentals. That call happened while Stacey was sleeping 4 feet from his unused pillow. 4 hours after he landed, Stacey opened her banking app while pacing in her bathroom. She told a friend later that her hands were shaking too hard to type the password. The app wouldn't load, then it froze. When it finally opened, the first thing she saw wasn't the balance, it was the transaction history. A wire transfer, not a charge, not a Zelle, a full wire, international. The amount wasn't astronomical, but it was enough to make her sink to the floor and stare at the screen until her phone dimmed. He moved close to $30,000 out of their joint account the day before he left. The routing details were masked, of course, but the destination country code? AL, Albania. And the transfer had cleared. She was locked out before she could stop it. 12 calls later, she finally reached a live person at the bank. She later told fans she had never felt more powerless. While she was stressing over show tapings and stylist meetings, he was watching the timeline coolly, methodically, digging into the infrastructure of their life and slicing through it one detail at a time. The bank confirmed everything was authorized, two-factor authenticated, accessed from his verified device. No fraud. It wasn't even flagged, and that made it worse. Because it wasn't a hacker, it wasn't a glitch, it was a partner who knew all the answers to the security questions, knew the account nicknames, knew the timing, knew she would be too loyal to check their finances daily. Most people don't check their joint accounts unless something feels off, and by the time it did, he was probably already powering down his phone in Tirana. She didn't say much publicly in the first 48 hours. But on the third day, Stacey posted a black screen to her stories with the song "Lose You to Love Me" playing. The caption was short. Nothing to fight for anymore. Not quite a breakup announcement, but not silence either. She followed it by disappearing from every scheduled event that week, canceled on a producer, missed 2 filming slots. Unheard of for someone who usually shows up even with lashes half glued and no sleep. In private, insiders say she cried through a whole stylist fitting and had to be escorted home by a makeup artist because she couldn't stop repeating one question: why didn't I see it? Meanwhile, fans were piecing together data like digital detectives. One Twitter user found an archived version of their shared LLC registered under her stylist brand. Turns out his name had quietly been removed as a secondary contact 3 weeks before. Not by Stacey. He'd filed a change of designation. Another user noticed that Florian had stopped tagging her in joint posts 2 months earlier. At the time, no one made anything of it, but now, every untagged post looks like a breadcrumb. On Reddit, half the fans were furious on her behalf, betrayed, outraged, but the other half wasn't so sure. Some suggested she must have known more than she let on, that no one missed that many red flags without willingly ignoring them, that maybe this was her karma. Speculation started turning toxic, but privately the breakdown was real. One of her Glam Squad team anonymously told a blogger that Stacey was barely functional the afternoon they tried to do a simple skincare collab. She got through one video, then left the set in tears, said she hadn't slept, that her password sheet was missing, that there were still accounts she couldn't access. She even went to a Chase branch to try and reverse the wire, spent 3 hours, left empty-handed, and then made one mistake. At 9:43 p.m. on a Thursday, she logged back into the joint account and transferred out everything she could, every remaining cent, closed the account, and moved it somewhere traceable only to her. Which makes sense in heartbreak, but from a legal standpoint, It might have been the worst move she could have made. 3 days after the wire transfer, the rumors shifted from betrayal to something darker, not just emotional dishonesty, but legal deceit. A random DM hit Stacey's inbox, but it didn't come through her main account. It was sent to her backup profile, the one only a few stylists and show crew knew existed. The message? One sentence, translated from Albanian. "He was never yours to begin with." Attached to it? A slightly blurry but very real-looking image of Florian standing next to a woman in a white dress inside what looked like a derelict village church. At first, Stacey dismissed it as a fan prank, blurry photos, troll vibes. But then she noticed the building behind them, stone walls, chipped paint, sunlight scarring one side of the wooden doorframe. She'd seen it before, in one of Florian's old Google Drive photo albums. He'd called it his grandfather's village. She remembered thinking it looked almost cinematic. Albanian countryside, untouched. But the dress wasn't something you wear casually. And the man in the photo had wrist tattoos matching Florian's perfectly. It didn't look staged. It looked sacred. Fans started reporting that image to gossip pages almost simultaneously. Within 24 hours, it had popped up in 2 Facebook groups and a Romanian drama blog. Reddit threads debated everything from the angle of his chin to pixel breakdowns, but eventually someone ran the page's watermark, and it traced back to a community-run wedding vendor site in the Tirana suburbs. One profile comment under the image read, "They looked so beautiful that day." It was dated 5 years ago. 5 years. If true, that would place the event before Florian ever stepped onto American soil. But here comes the tricky part. In Albanian immigration law, marriages must be legally dissolved before a citizen can marry abroad and sponsor a spousal visa. And when that law was brought up in online comments beneath a clip of Stacey and Florian's first season, the fan speculation cooled, then boiled over. Was he never legally divorced? If that's the case, Florian's marriage to Stacey could be invalid, not just emotionally but structurally. Not a divorce waiting to happen, a marriage that might not even count. The layers here start to peel themselves. Some fans dug through old 90-day interviews where Florian dodged questions about family back home. He always said his parents weren't comfortable with showbiz or that his relatives were private. Looking back, that could have been code for something he couldn't say on air, like a whole second life. Allegedly. Stacey's friends didn't speak out publicly, but they didn't have to. Her closest business partner posted an Instagram story showing herself pouring wine with the caption, "We delete the wedding pics, but the wine stays." Then another stylist posted a meme, "When your man has a wife in another time zone, do you see it?" No one denied it. No one even tried. And more began showing up. Fans shared screenshots of what looked like traditional engagement party footage from 2019, posted briefly in a family Facebook group before being scrubbed. In one video, a man who looked identical to Florian is seen walking behind a group of women in decorative Albanian dress, clapping to live music. The music style? Used primarily during engagement celebrations. And the setting? The countryside. Same as the earlier church photo. Translation issues made everything messier. One blog that swore Florian was married with 2 kids later admitted their source had quoted a folk proverb and not a literal fact. But where translation failed, timestamps delivered. So when a second photo appeared, timestamped, posted publicly, and not in a group, people zeroed in fast. The caption above it in Albanian was simple, "Today my cousin completes his circle." And who was tagged? Florian. Same first name, same last. Open comment thread, posted from a profile linked to an extended family member not followed by Stacey. The photo showed a bouquet resting on a dinner table. Not proof of marriage, but proof of celebration and presence. He was there. There was no caption needed underneath, because the date spoke for itself. The exact week Florian ghosted Stacey. A week after he left, a woman posted a photo outside JFK on TikTok with the caption, "Guess who sat across from me on this flight to Europe?" The post barely gained traction until someone in the comments asked, "Was he with anyone?" And she replied with 2 words, "Not alone." She didn't name him, didn't tag him, no direct accusation. But the algorithm found it anyway. Fans put it together quickly. Her flight code was visible in the corner of the image. Same terminal, same airline, same departure time as Florian's flight. And in another frame within her video, pausing timestamped at 00:12, you could barely make out the back of a man's head. Sharp jawline, dark hair, gray hoodie, too blurry to confirm, but enough to light up the internet. People began asking, who was the woman? And more importantly, why has no one from Florian's side shut this theory down? The idea of Florian flying alone was already unsettling. The silence felt calculated, even cruel. But hitting reset in Europe while sitting beside an unidentified woman brought everything to a different frequency. Was this a trip or a transition? An anonymous tip hit an influencer gossip inbox a few days later. Someone claimed to work for an airline data firm and said a female passenger was seated under the same reservation number as Florian. This wasn't verified, but the wording was specific. Closely timed bookings, separated only by one passenger ID digit, usually means a linked itinerary. Not a coincidence. Viewers started combing passenger manifest leaks. Nothing concrete yet, but one partial name kept surfacing in TikTok theory circles. Initials. MK. No one could place her, but a screen grab showed someone with that name checking a bag 1 minute ahead of Florian at the same kiosk, same airline app, uploaded from a shared airport IP. Then came the blurry elevator clip, brief CCTV snippet shared by a worker claiming to manage a small hotel outside the airport. It showed what looked like Florian and a petite woman entering an elevator just past 10 p.m. the night before his flight. A rolling carry-on, neutral-colored clothing, no accents, just body language. One moment stood still in the clip, when he stepped back to check the doorway, as if making sure no one saw them walk in. It didn't look like a traveler escaping drama. It looked like a man finishing a plan. Some fans reposted side-by-sides trying to match her face to anyone from the show. No hits. She wasn't anyone that had shown up on Stacey's stories or socials either. A complete ghost in the timeline, which makes it worse. If she were a friend, why all the secrecy? If it were business, why all the emotion? If he felt cornered by drama, why not just leave honestly? Instead, he let suspicion grow. He let people frame their own narrative. He offered no correction, no calm statement, no text to say, "Leave me alone." Isn't that what innocent people do? Speak up, create distance with explanation, not with silence? The show's cast members noticed. One even posted a cryptic comment. Some people vanish so clean, they forgot to leave a single lie behind. That comment got deleted hours later. But too late. Stacey still hadn't said a word about the mystery woman. Could mean she wanted privacy. Could mean she didn't know. Maybe she didn't even want to believe it. A throwback video resurfaced from a year before when Stacey and Florian argued on camera about loyalty. He said something strange, mostly ignored until now. "You only see what I tell you." At the time, it sounded like a bad translation, maybe something lost in second-language nerves. Now, it sounds like a warning. And the lack of denial makes people wonder if we've been watching the wrong story all along. Because what if Stacey was never the main relationship? What if she was the perfect distraction? It wasn't just the exit that raised questions. It was the way he acted before he walked out. The footage has always been there. We just didn't look at it in the right order. When you rewind and watch the last 2 seasons as a timeline, not a storyline, Florian's responses start to feel rehearsed, repeated, not like someone figuring things out, more like someone trying to manage the fallout without getting caught first. There's a moment in season 2 where Stacey praises him for helping her with a clothing shoot. He smiles, says thank you, then follows it with, "Next time, don't book me without asking." Not a fight, not a joke. A comment she nervously laughs off while looking over at the camera. He wasn't joking. She changed the subject. Another time, during a double date, Florian asked if she was ordering dessert. She said, "No, I'm cutting back," and he shook his head, muttered, "Finally." and sipped his drink. Everyone laughed. Online, people called it flirtatious shade. Now, some fans call it a red flag. Especially when it turns out these little moments weren't isolated. They were part of a long pattern, comments wrapped in smiles that only hit you later, when the honeymoon ends and the reality check begins. Was it gaslighting? Or was he just using humor to communicate frustration? That's the hard part. Emotional manipulation doesn't always scream. Sometimes it keeps score in silence. And when people cross the line dressed as charm, it gets harder to name it until it breaks you. One fan video went viral analyzing all his shutdown tactics, edited clips stitched into one reel, Stacey trying to talk about feeling unappreciated, and Florian cutting her off with the same phrases every time. Don't start. You're too much. Let's have peace. Except peace sometimes can be another word for control. Keep them quiet, keep them guessing. But here's the curveball. Some fans think he wasn't the only one controlling the energy. A few viewers believe Florian was overwhelmed by the spotlight, the production, the promo codes, the followers. That he never wanted a public relationship, let alone a scripted persona. That Stacey built the empire while Florian just floated through it, unsure how to step away from something that felt more like a machine than a marriage. A few sources close to production described Florian as withdrawn, often avoiding post-shoot dinners. He skipped press calls, barely replied to co-star DMs. One even said Florian once asked a grip on set, quietly, "Do you think I look happy?" It sounded like a joke. But who asks that unless they've already decided the answer? The power dynamics were layered. Stacey made most of the money. She ran the brand. She was the star. And Florian, whether by choice or conflict avoidance, became more silent as their brand grew louder. Silence can be love or submission. So was he being cold or scared? In Pillow Talk segments, he'd go from affectionate to defensive in under 6 seconds. Sometimes her teasing turned into pleading. Sometimes his affection turned robotic, like he was practicing lines with a stopwatch. Viewers now rewatch those scenes looking for missed clues. Did he ever really connect with her at all? Despite it all, Stacey kept showing up, fought for the relationship in public, covered for him when he bailed on shoots, posted his photos even when he refused to do captions. Whether that was strength or fear of failure is up for debate. But she believed in them past the point most would, even when he pulled away physically, even when he started checking out emotionally, even when he walked 3 paces ahead of her instead of beside her. And the microphone didn't catch much. But her voicemail app did. A week before he vanished, he left one voice note instead of texting back during an argument. It was 22 seconds long. Monotone. Cold. You don't need to schedule me anymore. I'll always be where I want to be, when I want to be. Pause. Stop worrying. She didn't play it for the cameras, but a friend of hers confirmed its existence during a podcast appearance after things blew up. That voicemail hit different once he left. It felt less like detachment and more like goodbye. Because when someone stops arguing, they've probably already made their decision. It surfaced late at night on a small gossip blog, nothing major. The kind of place fans usually scroll past. But the clip was short, unedited, and unmistakable. A man's voice, low, flat, direct, emotionless. It matched Florian's cadence exactly. There was no background noise, no fumbling, just one clean sentence. I hope you stop trying to fix what I already left. Unlike most rumors, this one didn't come from Reddit or an anonymous DM. It came from someone who claimed to be close to the audio's original source. And while it's still debated whether it's real, the timing was brutal. The audio leaked 4 days after Stacey posted a now-deleted reel of old clips with the caption, "Was it love or strategy?" Things were already unraveling. Then came the voice. Fans went straight to work. Some tried running vocal analysis through Google AI systems. Others compared it to Florian's old cameo videos. The tone, rhythm, even the tired pause between "you" and "stop" matched clips going back 3 seasons. No one confirmed it officially, but no one close to Florian denied it either. The worst part wasn't what he said. It was how final it felt. It wasn't angry. There was no fight in his voice, no regret. It sounded like a notice, not like someone running away from love, like someone clocking out without warning, without pretense, and without leaving room for a conversation. Nothing about it asked anything from her. Nothing even offered peace. It was just a door locking from the other side. Stacey broke her silence 2 days later, not with a long post, but a TikTok lip-sync video. The audio was from a dramatic breakup scene. "You didn't love me, you just didn't want me to love anyone else." It was a sharp turn from her usual image content. No tagged brands, no shoutouts, just pain. The comment section exploded with people asking about the voicemail. She didn't reply, but later answered a different fan under another video saying, "Closure is too clean for what happened to me." That line stuck. Closure is a choice. But what this situation felt like? That wasn't closure. It wasn't even distance. It was silence used as a tool. And silence is dangerous when you've spent your entire public life trying to make one story look whole. A relationship like theirs didn't disappear overnight. It just grew quieter until the noise meant nothing. And yet there are still defenders, still voices saying maybe Florian was pushed to do this, that maybe this was the only way he knew how to take space. Maybe it was calculated emotionally to turn Stacey from hurt into content before anyone could get a real answer. A lot of his fans say he was never the villain, just overwhelmed, just tired. But Stacey's fans see something else, a final jab wrapped in cold calm. And maybe that's worse than rage. At least anger means you care. Cold indifference leaves someone talking to themselves, rewriting arguments they're never going to win. Because for Stacey, the hardest pain wasn't what he said. It was what he left out. Behind every post, every blackout story, every cry-laugh caption, something else was happening off camera. Screenshots may generate sympathy, but it's court documents that demand action. And now, Stacey had no choice but to start fighting with paper instead of posts. The moment lawyers got involved, the tone shifted. This wasn't just a messy breakup anymore. It became a legal situation. The kind that makes you dig through everything, password trails, document folders, old applications, even wedding footage, for proof of something real or something fake. Stacey allegedly contacted a prominent New York divorce attorney just 9 days after the voicemail leakage. Initially, it was for consultation, but once they started asking questions, things turned complicated fast. There were inconsistencies in what could be validated as a formally registered marriage. The original certificate? Difficult to confirm. The filing date? Off by more than a few weeks. One report claimed that the courthouse listed the license under her married name, but state records showed no matching ceremony filed on the same day. So which one was fake? The on-camera marriage we saw, or the one that fell apart silently? Then came the issue of residency status. Florian's immigration path had always been a bit vague. Fans were split. Some thought he'd already secured his green card, while others suspected he was still in the process. What raised alarms was the timing. If he disappeared mid-process, it could carry serious consequences. For himself, and for Stacey. Under spousal sponsorship laws, the U.S. citizen carries part of the legal and financial responsibility for the applicant, which means if Florian dipped with financial issues unresolved, Stacey might still be tied to that damage. He can flee the marriage, but the legal thread? Not that easy to cut. So here she was, torn between heartbreak and paperwork, grief and legal liability. She didn't get the closure, but she still might get a bill. And audiences were divided. One side of the internet rallied behind her, demanding she report every single financial irregularity. Some even tagged ICE beneath her posts, begging for an investigation. Others weren't as firm. They asked, what if she still loves him? What if reporting him feels like a second betrayal? To herself, compassion versus consequence. But love, as it turns out, doesn't erase bank statements. Public filings showed she moved to protect certain assets connected to her clothing line. Quiet moves, done the legal way, likely advised by her attorney. Name amendments, account pivots, brand ownership reconfirmations, a cleanup, not for show, just for survival. The property division might be less dramatic, no shared house, mostly cash, mostly brand shares under her name, but there's still the question of what he took. Was anything in Albania technically gifted? Will she pursue recovery? Or will she just shut the book and walk away? Then, 2 weeks into the legal freeze, something happened that no one expected. Someone anonymously sent a bouquet to her business address. No note, no initials, just white roses. One insider, allegedly connected to her assistant team, posted a cryptic message that evening: "Peace doesn't arrive. It's sent." And of course fans went wild. Some screenshotted a photo of white roses Florian had once gifted Stacey during filming. Others zoomed in on the bouquet wrapper, trying to trace the florist. Nothing conclusive came out of it. But the emotional tornado it stirred? Immediate. Why now? Was it a peace offering? A distraction? Was Florian trying to make himself unforgettable just as she was trying to legally remove him? Or worse, was he testing if she'd still melt at the sight of pretty petals? The lawyers were finally drafting papers, but he might have still known how to get her attention without saying a single word. Just when everything seemed to collapse for good, Stacey posted a reel. Soft glam, slow zoom, upbeat music. No trace of heartbreak, no captions about betrayal, no cryptic quotes. Just lashes, lip gloss, and quiet control. If you didn't know better, you'd think nothing had happened at all. But that was the point. She had started filming again. Not with Florian, not with familiar castmates, but with herself. Alone in curated lighting, framed in ways that kept the focus off her eyes and on the product. It was subtle at first: sponsored skincare, a styling video, behind-the-scenes shots from an upcoming pop-up event. But if you looked closer, something shifted in tone. Less couple content, more CEO energy, and for every clean edit, every perfect highlight, the unspoken question lingered: what's real and what's damage control? Fans clocked it immediately. Some praised her. She's getting paid while healing. Turn the pain into power. Don't let him profit off your heartbreak. But others weren't convinced. Too soon. Where's the reflection? This feels more like a show than a recovery. The truth lived in the gray, because Stacey has always known how to blur what happened with what's worth posting. She comes from a reality TV world where crying on screen means content, and content means relevance. But now, with Florian gone and the camera facing only her, things got personal in a completely different way. One video stood out. A slow-motion clip of Stacey twirling in a bright pink suit with an overlay that read, "Rebuilding quietly." It got over 200,000 views in the first few hours. Music, soft piano, text, minimal, no tags. That reel reopened the debate. Was she creating space for other women to reclaim themselves after betrayal, or scripting another season of a never-ending storyline? The pain is real, yes, but so is the algorithm. Growth surges after public heartbreak aren't random. The more viewers dig into your loss, the more engagement you get. Comments explode, followers climb, and if you're smart, you'll catch the wave, hurt or not. Yet not once did she directly address Florian, not his name, not his face. The closest she came was one quote shared quietly at midnight: "Some exits are freedom wearing a disguise." Still, no one could figure out if this new version of Stacey was moving on or covering up, until someone unexpected showed up in the comments. A burner-type account. No profile pic, no posts, but fans recognized the username as one Florian used to follow before disappearing. The comment said one word: elegant, simple, off-brand, almost absurdly low effort, but it sent the fanbase into chaos. Was it him? Was it someone impersonating him? Or was it the digital version of knocking gently on a closed door to see if she'd still answer? Because when words finally came, they didn't explain anything. They only deepened the silence she'd spent weeks trying to master. Months have passed since the airport cameras last caught Florian walking into Terminal 1 without her, and still, not a single official word. No interview, no denial, no apology, no confirmation. His Instagram remains untouched. Twitter? Silent. TikTok? Locked. Even the friends who used to tag him in gym selfies or Albanian street food photos have gone quiet. Digital ghosts surrounding a scandal nobody from his side seems eager to clear up. And in that vacuum, Stacey built something else. She didn't beg for answers. She didn't run to the press. She reshaped her entire public image almost overnight. Softer lighting in her posts gave way to sharper captions. Healing is my habit. Rebuilding isn't glamorous. Better alone than lied to loud. Not subtle, not shy, and absolutely not broken. The Stacey we see now isn't asking the camera to understand her. She's daring it to catch up. And for some people, that's empowering. A woman picking herself up without using a victim card. For others, it's performance. Chic heartbreak content engineered to keep her on the algorithm, keep her bookings flowing, and remind people that she already knew how to be famous with or without a man on her arm. The public has gone back and forth. Is she surviving something ugly or scripting something marketable? Is this growth or a rebrand? Then came the moment no one expected. A tabloid buried deep in the entertainment section ran a 3-paragraph quote from a second cousin of FLORIAN'S who allegedly spoke off-record. It didn't include location, didn't confirm the marriage rumors, but the quote said this: "What people are hearing is not the whole truth. He left to avoid something worse." No one verified it, but the source has family tagged in older photos with Florian, enough connective tissue to make people wonder, avoided what? Stacey, when asked directly by a podcast host if she believes she ever really knew him, paused, then said, "I don't think we ever know someone who's pretending to be a safe place." That line stayed with people. She hasn't confirmed whether legal proceedings are finalized. But she's referenced documents getting tied up in cross-border nonsense. At least one brand rep has confirmed she's requested all future promos be under her birth name. A small shift, but it signals something bigger, that the narrative now belongs to her. As for Florian, his silence is starting to feel less like distance and more like a strategy. Because if you don't speak, you can't be misquoted, you can't be disproven, and more importantly, you can't be held accountable. There's no wrap-up interview, no final scene, no dramatic airport reunion. And that's what's gnawing at the audience. We've followed this train wreck from the soft voices of barely whispered I love yous to the soundless void of a phone that never calls back. When you look back at the earliest seasons, the clues were always there. The long pauses, the non-answers. The overreactions to simple questions, the loyalty quotes paired with side glances, but love has a way of making you romanticize confusion. And maybe that's what Stacey finally let go of, not the man, but the illusion. She's not posting him anymore. She's not subtweeting pain, but she's also not offering forgiveness, and that unsettles people, because we want tidy endings, sadness that gets resolved, closure dressed as healing. But this story didn't give us that. It gave us silence, and distance, and a truth so full of holes that it might have been a lie in reverse this entire time. No verified statement, no final word, no confirmation. Just a one-way ticket, and the kind of vanishing act nobody managed to predict because it didn't look like leaving. It looked like planning. So now we're left with the real question, what really happened that night at JFK, and why hasn't a single person from his life stepped up to correct the story?